Cancel your wedding. My late grandma told me in a dream the night before my big day. Wake up early and go to your mother-in-law's house. You'll see everything. I drove there at dawn, heart pounding. When I stepped inside, I froze. What I saw changed everything. Actually, that's a lie. Dreams don't work like that in real life. What really happened was simpler and uglier. I'm Frank Delaney, 58 years old, ex-logistics officer for a trucking union. I spent 30 years negotiating with corporations that thought they could crush working people. They learned otherwise. I learned how to read people, how to document everything, and how to wait for the perfect moment to strike. My son Jake turned into someone I didn't recognize about 5 years ago. It started when he got his MBA, married Ashley, and suddenly my 2-bedroom apartment in Queens became embarrassing. My daughter Sarah pretended to stay neutral, but I caught her rolling her eyes when I wore my old work boots to her birthday dinner. The morning before Jake's wedding, I couldn't sleep, not because of dreams, but because I'd overheard something 2 days earlier that made my stomach turn. I was at Ashley's mother's house, supposedly helping move furniture. They thought I'd left. I hadn't. The old man still has the keys, Ashley's mother, Patricia, said. Her voice carried through the hallway like smoke. We need those keys, Ashley. That apartment is worth $400,000 now, maybe more. Jake's working on it, Ashley replied. He'll ask at the wedding. Public pressure. His father won't refuse in front of everyone. Patricia laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. And after we get the apartment? Then Frank becomes somebody else's problem. I stood in that hallway for 10 seconds, recording every word on my phone. Then I walked out the back door, got in my truck, and drove home. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I thought about every union negotiation I'd ever won, every corporate lawyer who'd underestimated me, every fight I'd ever walked into, with nothing but preparation and patience. Jake called me that night. Dad, hey, tomorrow's the big day. You excited? Sure, I said. Listen, Ashley and I were talking. We know you're getting older, and that apartment is a lot for one person. I manage fine. Right, but we thought maybe you'd want to, downsize. Let us handle the property. We'd take care of everything. I could hear Ashley coaching him in the background. Her voice was a sharp whisper. Tell him it's about his health. It's about your health, Dad. We're worried. I'm healthy as a horse, Jake. Silence. Then, we'll talk tomorrow, at the wedding. I hung up. Then I made a call to someone I hadn't spoken to in 12 years. The phone rang 4 times. Not yet, Victor. I need a favor. Victor Callahan was 63, built like a fire hydrant, and had a reputation that made corporate executives sweat through their $1,000 suits. He'd worked debt collection for 20 years before becoming an independent contractor. Nothing illegal, just terrifying. What kind of favor? The kind where you show up to my son's wedding tomorrow and stand next to me during the ceremony. Victor was quiet for a moment. You want me to scare somebody? I want you to exist, that's all. Who's the target? My family. Another pause. Christ, Frank, what did they do? They're trying to steal my home. I'll be there. What time? I gave him the details. Then I sat in my apartment, the one my wife Ellen and I had bought 30 years ago, when Jake was 3 and Sarah was still in diapers. Ellen died 6 years back. Cancer. The kids came to the funeral and left the same day. Sarah had a work thing. Jake had to catch a flight. This apartment held every memory I had of her. Every birthday, every Christmas morning, every quiet Sunday. And my son wanted to take it, sell it, and probably use the money for a down payment on some McMansion in Connecticut. Not happening. I didn't sleep that night. I cleaned instead. Polished the picture frames on the mantel. Vacuumed the carpet Ellen picked out. I even wiped down the kitchen counters twice, though there wasn't a crumb on them. When I finished, I sat in her old recliner, the one the kids wanted to donate, and I looked around. Everything in that place had a story. The dent in the wall from when Jake threw a baseball inside the house. The chipped edge on the coffee table from the time Sarah tried to do cartwheels indoors. The uneven paint near the window where Ellen and I tried and failed to repaint the living room ourselves. That apartment wasn't just real estate, it was the last place on earth where my life still made sense. The wedding was at 11 a.m. at a fancy event hall in Long Island. The kind with marble floors, gold trim, and chandeliers so big they looked like they could crush a man if they fell. I wore my one good suit and the same steel-toed boots I'd worn for 30 years. Not because I had nothing better, because I wanted Jake to see them. I wanted him to feel embarrassed. I wanted him to feel what I felt every time he called me out of touch or old-fashioned. Victor was already there when I walked in, standing by the bar, arms crossed, looking like a boulder in a funeral suit. He gave me a nod. "Showtime?" he asked. "Showtime," I said. People stared at him. Good. They were supposed to. He had hands like sledgehammers and shoulders like a steel door. When Jake saw me come in, relief washed over his face. He probably thought I'd softened, that I'd hand over the keys, give him a hug, and pretend everything was fine. He walked up, forced smile in place. "Dad, hey, you made it." I looked him straight in the eye. "You ready to talk about that apartment?" His smile flickered. He glanced at Victor. "Who's this?" "A friend," I said. "He used to collect debts. Sometimes people needed clarification." Jake swallowed. "Dad, we can talk later, after the ceremony." "No, we talk now." Ashley walked over, fake sweetness dripping from her like cheap perfume. "Frank, maybe we should focus on the wedding. We can handle the apartment paperwork later. No need for drama." I pulled out my phone, hit play. Patricia's voice filled the room. "The old man still has the keys. That apartment is worth $400,000. The color drained from Ashley's face. Patricia, across the room, stopped mid-conversation and turned toward us, eyes wide. People were staring now. The groom's side frozen. The bride's side whispering. The music stopped. Jake stammered, "Dad, this is out of context." "No, son," I said, voice steady. "This is context. You just didn't think I'd have it." Victor stepped forward just enough for Jake to feel his presence. Not a threat, a reminder. I continued, "You wanted to take the place where your mother and I raised you. Sell it. Dump me somewhere cheap, somewhere out of sight. All because you've convinced yourself that success means erasing where you came from." Jake's jaw clenched. "You don't understand." "I understand completely. You became the kind of man I spent my whole career fighting." I reached into my pocket, pulled out the apartment keys, held them up just long enough for everyone to see, then slid them back inside my coat. "You don't get these," I said. "Not now, not ever. You don't get my home, my memories, or the last piece of your mother you haven't already forgotten." I turned to leave. Victor fell into step beside me. Behind me, I heard Ashley hiss, "Are you just going to let him walk away?" And then Jake said, voice shaking, "I never should have told you to invite him." That was the only part that hurt. Not the betrayal, not the greed, not even the fact that my own son saw me as an obstacle. What hurt was how easy it was for him to dismiss everything I ever did for him. Every lunch I skipped to pay for his textbooks. Every overtime shift so he could have braces. Every time I defended him when he was wrong because I believed he would grow into someone better. Someone decent. But some people don't grow. They just molt into a shinier version of themselves. I walked out of that hall without looking back. Haven't spoken to Jake since. Sarah called once, said I'd overreacted. I told her she was welcome to take her brother's side, but she wouldn't get the keys either. She hung up. People ask if I regret it, if I miss them. Truth is, I miss who they were, not who they became. Now I spend my days in the apartment Ellen and I made a life in. I fix things, even if they're not broken. I cook the recipes she used to make, even if they never taste quite the same. and every night before bed. Not because I'm scared of strangers, because sometimes the people who try to take your home are the ones you raised inside it, and I'll be damned if I ever let them back in. Before we go any further, hit the hype button, take a second to subscribe, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? The wedding venue was one of those places that costs more per hour than I used to make in a month. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, waiters in tuxedos carrying champagne that probably cost $50 a glass. 300 guests. I recognized maybe 10 of them. I wore my best suit. It was 15 years old, but it was clean and it fit. Ashley's family wore designer everything. Her father kept checking his Rolex. Her mother, Patricia, glided through the crowd like a shark in Chanel. Jake found me standing near the bar. "Dad, hey, glad you made it. Wouldn't miss it." He looked nervous. "Good. Listen, about what we talked about." "Not now, Jake." Ashley appeared at his elbow. She wore white like she'd earned it. Her smile was camera-ready. "Frank, so glad you're here." She kissed my cheek. It felt like being marked by a predator. "Congratulations," I said. "Thank you. We're so excited to start this new chapter. New home, new life." She squeezed Jake's hand. "Speaking of which, Jake and I wanted to ask you something important. Here we go." She gestured to the crowded room. "Everyone here knows how much you've done for Jake, how you raised him, supported him. You're such an amazing father." Buttering me up, classic. "And we know that apartment has so many memories. But Frank, you're not getting any younger, and we worry about you living alone in that big space." It was a one-bedroom, barely 800 square feet. "So we thought." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a keyring. Empty. Waiting. "We thought you could give us the keys today. As a wedding gift. Let us take care of the property, and you could move somewhere smaller, easier to manage. What do you think?" 300 people, every single one of them watching. Jake put his hand on my shoulder. "It's for the best, Dad." I looked at my son, really looked at him. He had Ellen's eyes, but they were cold now, empty. When had that happened? When had he stopped being my boy and started being this stranger in an expensive suit? "No," I said. Ashley's smile froze. "I'm sorry." I said no. "Frank, don't be difficult," Patricia said, materializing beside us. "This is a happy day, don't ruin it. I'm not the one trying to steal property in front of witnesses." Patricia's face turned red. Ashley's turned white. Jake stepped back like I'd slapped him. "How dare you?" Ashley hissed. "After everything we've done for you." "What exactly have you done for me, Ashley?" She didn't answer. Instead, she raised her hand and slapped me across the face. The sound echoed through the venue. 300 people gasped as one. The room went silent except for the string quartet, which kept playing because nobody told them to stop. My cheek burned. I didn't touch it. I didn't move. I just looked at Jake. "You going to say something, son?" Jake's jaw worked. He glanced at Ashley, then at me. "Dad, you embarrassed her. You embarrassed us." "I embarrassed you." "Just go, please." I nodded slowly. Then I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and pressed call. The phone rang once. Victor answered. "Yeah. I'm at the Montgomery estate, main ballroom. I need you now." 10 minutes. I hung up and looked at Jake. Really looked at him. "One phone call," I said quietly, "and this whole room will remember me forever." Then I walked out. I waited in the parking lot. My face still stung where Ashley had hit me. Around me, expensive cars gleamed in the afternoon sun. Mercedes, BMW, a couple of Teslas. I leaned against my 15-year-old Ford pickup and checked my watch. 9 minutes. The door to the venue burst open. Jake stormed toward me, Ashley right behind him, Patricia trailing with a cluster of wedding guests. A small crowd was forming. Perfect. What the hell did you just do? Jake shouted. Who did you call? An old friend. This is insane. You're ruining my wedding because you can't accept change. Change, I repeated. Is that what we're calling theft now? Ashley pointed at me. You're delusional. We were trying to help you. I recorded your conversation with your mother 2 days ago. Frank becomes somebody else's problem. Ring any bells? Her face went pale. Patricia stepped forward. That's illegal. No, Patricia. New York is a one-party consent state. I can record any conversation I'm part of. And I was standing right there in your hallway while you plotted to steal my home. We weren't stealing anything, Jake said, but his voice wavered. We were going to take care of you. In what? A nursing home? A studio apartment in the bad part of town? Don't be dramatic. A black SUV pulled into the parking lot. It moved slow, deliberate. The crowd turned to watch. The vehicle stopped 20 feet away, and the driver's door opened. Victor Callahan stepped out. He wore a dark suit that looked like it cost more than my truck. His grey hair was combed back, his face weathered and hard. He moved like a man who'd spent his life in rooms where violence was always an option, but rarely necessary. He didn't look at anyone but me. Frank, he said. Victor. Problem? Not anymore. Behind me, I heard whispers spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Someone said, Is that Victor Callahan? Another voice. Oh my God, that's the guy who made the Steinberg CEO cry. A third. He broke up that real estate fraud ring in Jersey. Patricia grabbed Ashley's arm. We should go inside. Victor finally looked at the crowd. His gaze swept over them like a predator assessing prey. Then he focused on Jake. You Frank's boy? Jake nodded, unable to speak. Your father saved my life once. 12 years ago. I had a gambling debt, and the wrong people were collecting. Frank called in favors, negotiated on my behalf, got me out clean. I owed him everything. Victor stepped closer. He just called that debt in. You know what that means? Jake shook his head. It means if he asks me to stand here and watch his back, I stand here and watch his back. If he asks me to make some calls, I make some calls. If he asks me to look into someone's business dealings... Victor glanced at Patricia. I look very, very carefully. Patricia's face lost all color. We're not doing anything illegal, Ashley stammered. Didn't say you were, Victor replied. But I bet if someone looked hard enough at your mother's real estate company, they'd find some interesting paperwork. Inflated appraisals, maybe. Questionable loans. The kind of thing the IRS loves to investigate. You're threatening us, Jake said. No, I'm making an observation. Your father's a good man. One of the best I've ever met. And you just let your wife slap him in front of 300 people because he wouldn't hand over his home. Victor's voice dropped. You should be ashamed. Jake's hands clenched into fists. You can't talk to me like that. I just did. Jake took a step forward. Big mistake. Victor didn't move, didn't flinch. He just stood there, radiating the kind of calm that comes from knowing you've already won. Touch me, Victor said softly, and I'll put you on the ground without breaking a sweat. But I won't have to, because you're smart enough to know you're outmatched. Jake stopped. Go back to your wedding, I said. Smile for the cameras. Dance with your bride. But understand something. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. Ashley grabbed Jake's arm. Let's go. He's not worth it. They turned and walked back toward the venue, the crowd parting for them. Patricia lingered for a moment, her eyes full of venom. You'll regret this. No, I said. I really won't. She left. The crowd dispersed. Victor and I stood alone in the parking lot. You okay? He asked. Getting there. What's the play? I need to figure out how deep this goes. Jake didn't come up with this on his own. Ashley's family has been working on him, turning him against me, and I think my daughter Sarah might be involved too. Victor nodded. I can make some calls. Look into Patricia's business. See what pressure points exist. Do it, but keep it legal. I don't want anything that can blow back on me. Clean as a whistle, promise. He paused. Frank, I'm sorry. About your kids. That's rough. Yeah. You need anything else, you call me, day or night. Thanks, Victor. He got back in his SUV and drove away. I stood in the parking lot for another 5 minutes, letting the rage settle into something colder, harder, something useful. Then I got in my truck and went home. The apartment felt different now, emptier. I walked through the rooms, touching things Ellen had touched. Her favorite chair, the bookshelf we'd built together, the framed photo of Jake and Sarah as kids, grinning at the camera with missing teeth and messy hair. When had I lost them? I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. Time to dig. First stop, Sarah. My daughter lived in Manhattan, worked in marketing, and had been strangely quiet for the past 6 months. Every time I called, she was busy. Every time I invited her over, she had plans. I pulled up her social media, Instagram, mostly. Photos of fancy restaurants, cocktail bars, weekend trips to the Hamptons. Not exactly the life of someone living paycheck to paycheck. I checked her last job listing. Junior marketing associate. Salary probably around $45,000 a year. So, where was the money coming from? I dug deeper, found her Venmo transactions, public by default, because she didn't know how privacy settings worked. Regular payments from an account labeled PMD Properties. Patricia Miller Development, Ashley's mother's company. I sat back, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Sarah was on their payroll. My daughter had been bought. I called her. She answered on the 4th ring. Hey, Dad, what's up? You tell me. What? PMD Properties. Ring any bells? Silence. Sarah, how long have you been working for Ashley's mother? It's just freelance work, marketing consulting. How much is she paying you? That's none of your business. How much? $2,000 a month. Her voice was defensive. I needed the money, Dad. Rent in Manhattan is insane. What did she ask you to do? Nothing. Just social media management for her properties. Some copywriting. Bullshit. What did she ask you to do, Sarah? Another pause. Then quietly. She wanted to know about the apartment, about your finances, about whether you had a will, power of attorney, stuff like that. My hands were shaking. I put the phone on speaker and set it on the table. And you told her. I didn't think it mattered. She said she was just trying to help Jake and Ashley plan for the future. She's trying to steal my home, Sarah. Jake and Ashley tried to get the keys at the wedding today. They were going to force me out. That's not... Dad, they wouldn't do that. Ashley slapped me in front of 300 people when I refused. Silence. Long, heavy silence. She slapped you? Across the face, hard. And Jake took her side. Oh my God. Sarah, I need to know. Are you part of this? Did you know they were going to ambush me at the wedding? No, I swear, I had no idea. Patricia just asked me questions about you, about the apartment. She said it was for insurance purposes. Insurance purposes? I'm sorry, Dad, I didn't know. You took money to spy on your own father. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She didn't answer. I hung up. 3 days after the wedding, I got a call from my lawyer. Frank, we have a problem. David Chen had handled Ellen's estate 6 years ago and had been my attorney ever since. Good man, thorough, the kind of lawyer who read every footnote, who highlighted every clause, who never called unless he absolutely had to. So when his voice came through the line tight and urgent, I knew this wasn't a routine update. What kind of problem? I asked, though a cold weight was already forming in my stomach. Your son filed a petition to become your legal guardian. Claims you're mentally unfit to manage your affairs. The room tilted. For a moment I thought I might actually fall out of the chair. He what? He submitted paperwork this morning. Cites erratic behavior, paranoia, an incident at his wedding, where you allegedly threatened his wife and her family. I pressed a hand to my forehead. I could still see the reception hall in my mind, the white tablecloths, the overdone floral arrangements, the fake smiles. I didn't threaten anyone. I refused to give them my apartment keys. That's not how they're framing it, David said. They have witness statements from wedding guests saying you became aggressive, made threatening phone calls, brought a known enforcer to intimidate them. Victor is a friend, I snapped. I asked him to come. He was there to support me, not rough anyone up. Frank, it doesn't matter what actually happened. What matters is perception. If a judge believes you're not competent, Jake can take control of your finances, your property, everything. I stared across the room at the framed photo of Ellen on the bookshelf. She always said Jake had his mother's smile, but my stubbornness. Apparently he'd inherited something else too. Ambition sharp enough to cut family ties. Can they do that? I asked quietly. Just take away my rights? If they make a strong enough case, yes, David said. Especially given your age and the fact that you live alone. Courts err on the side of protection. Once you're labeled incapable, the burden of proving otherwise is almost impossible. I closed my eyes. How do I fight this? We schedule a competency hearing. You'll need to undergo a psychological evaluation. But Frank, you need to be careful. Any outbursts, any confrontations with Jake or Ashley, any evidence that you're unstable will hurt our case. So I just let them walk all over me? I asked, anger slowly replacing the shock. No. You document everything, every interaction, every conversation. Build your case carefully. Show you're rational, methodical, in control. I can do that. Good. And Frank, get ahead of this. Whatever leverage you have, use it now, before they lock you out completely. I thanked David and hung up, the phone suddenly much heavier in my hand. I sat there for a long while, staring at the sunlight creeping across the floorboards, listening to the old pipes knock in the walls, like the building itself was warning me. Then I called Victor. He picked up on the first ring. Already found something, he said without preamble. Patricia's company is in trouble. Deep trouble. She's been using shell corporations to hide losses, inflating property values to secure loans she can't repay. It's a house of cards, and it's about to collapse. How soon? I asked. 3 months. Maybe 6, unless she finds a cash infusion. Like the equity from my apartment. Exactly. She needs that $400,000 to stay afloat. Without it, her company goes under, and she loses everything. Can you prove it? I have copies of loan documents, internal emails, accounting records, all obtained legally from public filings and business partners who got nervous and talked. Send them to me, all of it. There was a pause. Frank, what are you planning? Mutually assured destruction, I said. If they push this competency hearing, I push back. Hard. Be careful, Victor warned. These people are desperate. So am I. After we hung up, I walked through the apartment. Ellen's chair by the window, her teacup on the shelf I never had the heart to move. The piano she wanted Sarah to learn on, though Sarah never practiced. The house felt less like a home now and more like evidence. Evidence they were ready to seize, catalogue, and strip from me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in Ellen's chair and let the memories spool out like old film reels. The kids we'd raised. Jake learning to ride a bike, scraped knees and big smiles, shouting, "Look, Dad!" as if gravity itself obeyed him. Sarah's first day of school, clutching my hand so tight, her fingernails left little crescent moons in my skin, crying because she didn't want me to leave. Family dinners around this table, talking about nothing and everything, Ellen laughing, me pretending the meatloaf didn't need more salt. Where had it all gone wrong? Maybe it was gradual. Maybe it was the years after Ellen died, when grief made everything quiet, and Jake stepped further into Ashley's orbit, and Sarah moved across the country and called only on holidays. Or maybe it was all at once, like a sudden rip in the fabric. One moment we were a family, and the next I was the problem to be solved, the obstacle between them and something they wanted. My phone buzzed. a text from an unknown number. Back off, or we'll make sure you never see your grandchildren. I stared at the screen. I didn't have grandchildren. They were bluffing, trying to rattle me. I texted back, "Try it." The 3 dots appeared, then vanished. They didn't reply. But I knew what that meant. They weren't just bluffing, they were planning. I set the phone down and let out a long breath. The apartment felt smaller. The shadows seemed longer. It wasn't paranoia if the threat was real, and now I had the first direct shot fired across the line. I walked into the spare room, the one Jake wanted the keys to, the one he claimed was unsafe for me to manage. The safe sat in the closet, bolted into the concrete foundation. Inside were Ellen's letters, the deed to the apartment, and a flash drive containing the kind of information no court could ignore. I'd kept it all these years out of instinct. Now I understood why. I unlocked the safe, placed Victor's documents inside, and shut it again with a metallic click. I wasn't going to wait for them to bury me while I was still breathing. The next morning I called Sarah. She sounded tired, guarded. "Dad, if this is about the petition..." "It is." A sigh. "Jake thinks you need help. He's worried. We all are." "You've spoken to him, but not to me. Does that seem fair?" Silence. "I'm not incompetent, Sarah," I said. "I've lived on my own, paid my bills, filed my taxes. I'm not wandering into traffic or talking to ghosts." Her voice softened. "But you did show up at the wedding with Victor, and you did refuse to give Jake the keys, and the voicemail you left Ashley." "The voicemail where I said I didn't trust her," I asked. "That wasn't a threat, that was a warning." "Do you hear how that sounds? Do you hear how it feels when your own children decide you need to be put away?" She didn't answer. Maybe because she didn't know. Maybe because she did. "Sarah," I said quietly, "they're after the apartment. That's all this is. They want to liquidate it to bail out Patricia's failing company. Jake's in it with her." "That's not true." "I have the proof," I said. "Real proof. The kind that ruins careers. Who do you think they'll throw under the bus first, me or her?" Another long silence. I imagined her chewing her thumbnail, pacing the way Ellen used to. "Dad, if what you're saying is real, you need to show it to someone. Not just lawyers, someone who can protect you." "I intend to." She exhaled, shaky. "I never wanted any of this." Neither did I. We hung up without saying goodbye. Maybe she was still undecided. Maybe she was already choosing a side. That afternoon, David called again. He'd received the hearing date, 6 weeks from now. Not much time to build a defense, but enough if I played it smart. I poured a cup of black coffee and sat at the table with a fresh notebook. Page 1, timeline. Page 2, evidence. Page 3, witnesses. I wrote slowly, deliberately, documenting every conversation, every threat, every financial inconsistency I could trace back to Patricia's empire of lies. If they wanted war, I would give them one. Not the shouting, fist-on-the-table kind. The kind fought with paper cuts and sealed envelopes, with quiet strategy and documented truth. Somewhere between my handwriting and the cooling coffee, I realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore. Age doesn't make you weak. It makes you patient. It makes you dangerous in a different way. The kind of danger that waits, collects, and strikes only when the blow can't be undone. Let them come. I was ready. The psychological evaluation was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Dr. Helen Morrison, court-appointed psychiatrist. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing my cleanest clothes, carrying a folder full of documentation. "Mr. Delaney," Dr. Morrison said, shaking my hand. She was mid-50s, professional, kind eyes. "Please, sit." The evaluation took 2 hours. Memory tests, logic puzzles, questions about my mood and behavior. I answered everything calmly, methodically, showed her my medical records, my financial statements, letters from friends attesting to my character. Your son claims you've been experiencing paranoid delusions, Dr. Morrison said, specifically that you believe your family is conspiring to steal your property. It's not a delusion if it's true. I pulled out my phone, played the recording of Patricia and Ashley's conversation. Dr. Morrison listened, her expression neutral. When it finished, she made a note. This is quite serious. Yes, it is. Mr. Delaney, I have to ask, why did you bring a man with a criminal background to your son's wedding? Victor Callahan isn't a criminal. He's a private contractor, and I brought him because I knew Jake and Ashley would try to pressure me publicly, and I needed someone who could even the playing field. By intimidation, by presence. Victor didn't threaten anyone. He just stood there. Sometimes that's enough. Dr. Morrison studied me for a long moment. You're very calculated. I spent 30 years negotiating with people who wanted to crush unions. You learn to think 3 steps ahead. And you believe your children are trying to exploit you. I know they are. The evidence is clear. How does that make you feel? I was quiet for a moment, like I failed them, like somewhere along the way I raised kids who value money more than family. That's a heavy burden. Yes, she made more notes. Then she closed her folder. Mr. Delaney, I'll submit my report to the court within a week. But off the record, you're one of the most competent people I've evaluated in years. Your son doesn't have a case. I felt something loosen in my chest. Thank you. However, I'd recommend you seek counseling. Not because you're unwell, but because navigating family betrayal is traumatic, even for someone as strong as you. I nodded. I'll think about it. That evening, Victor called. Patricia reached out to me. What? She tried to hire me, wanted me to convince you to drop the competency defense, sign over the apartment, go quietly. What did you say? I told her I don't work for people who abuse the elderly. I'm not elderly, Victor laughed. Tell that to your knees. Anyway, she's desperate, getting sloppy. That's when people make mistakes. Good, let her. Frank, there's something else. Sarah's been meeting with Ashley and Patricia. Weekly lunches. I've got photos. My stomach turned. Send them to me. The photos arrived 10 minutes later. Sarah, Ashley, and Patricia at an upscale restaurant, laughing, toasting with wine glasses, sisters in arms. I forwarded them to Sarah with a single line. Judas got 30 pieces of silver. What's your price? She called immediately. Dad, it's not what it looks like. Then what is it? They're helping me with my career. Patricia has connections. She's using you, can't you see that? No, you're the one who doesn't see. Jake and Ashley are trying to build a life. The apartment could change everything for them. Why can't you just let it go? Because it's mine. Because your mother and I bought it with our own hands. Because it's all I have left of her. That's selfish. Selfish? Sarah, they're trying to have me declared incompetent so they can take my home. How is that not selfish? Because they're thinking about the future, about family. What family? The one that slapped me at a wedding? The one that's paying you to spy on me? I'm done with this conversation. So am I. Don't call me again unless you're ready to tell the truth. She hung up. I sat in the dark apartment, surrounded by ghosts. The competency hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. In that time, Victor compiled a dossier on Patricia Miller development that would make a forensic accountant weep. Forged documents, fraudulent loans, tax evasion, shell corporations stacked like nesting dolls. A paper trail so intricate, so deliberate, so arrogant in its construction that it suggested a woman who genuinely believed she was untouchable. The kind of person who thought laws were suggestions and consequences were things that only happened to other people. He sent me a summary first, 27 pages, single-spaced, with exhibits. By the time I reached page 4, I knew one thing for certain. Patricia wasn't just desperate. She was drowning, and she'd started using family as flotation devices. But I didn't make the call to the IRS. Not yet. Instead, I did something that required more finesse, more precision, a clean blade, not a hammer. Ashley was a lifestyle influencer, 60,000 followers on Instagram, each one a tiny mirror she checked her reflection in. Sponsored posts for boutique clothing brands, organic skincare companies, luxury travel destinations. Her whole life was curated, filtered, perfect, right down to the way she accidentally showed the label of whatever new product she was pretending she didn't mean to advertise. I created a burner account and started following her. Watching, I took notes the way I used to take notes in board meetings, structure, timing, vulnerabilities. It didn't take long. She went live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. sharp. Beauty routine tutorials, fashion advice, Q&A sessions with her tribe. She called them that, tribe, as if they were a family instead of a customer base. Always glossy, always smiling, always selling the dream. On Tuesday, the clock hit 8, and there she was, ring light haloing her hair, voice bright enough to give a dentist a migraine. I waited exactly 15 minutes, just long enough for the chat to fill with emojis and heart-filled adoration. Then I joined the comments. Username, Truth Matters 2024. Comment, ask her about the wedding where she slapped her father-in-law in front of 300 people. The comment disappeared in less than 3 seconds. Deleted. But not before others saw it. You can't unring a bell on the internet. You can only try to scream over it. Questions started popping up in the chat like popcorn. What wedding? Father-in-law? Did something happen? Spill tea. Ashley's smile froze the way a lake freezes, smooth on the surface, lethal underneath. Someone's spreading lies, she said, voice pitched an octave higher. Don't believe everything you read online, I posted again. Not lies. I have video. I didn't have video. I didn't need video. I only needed her to believe that I might. Her face went the color of unbaked dough. She kept smiling, but her eyes were calculating, frantic, moving off-screen as if someone was waving their arms wildly from behind the camera. She ended the live stream abruptly. Within an hour, my phone rang. Restricted number. I already knew who it was. Patricia, no preamble, no pretense. A voice like polished steel dragged over concrete. What do you think you're doing? Leveling the playing field, I said. You're harassing my daughter. I'm asking questions. If she has nothing to hide, she has nothing to worry about. You're trying to destroy her career. No, I said. I'm showing the world who she really is. Turns out authenticity sells better than moisturizers. I'll sue you for defamation. Go ahead. Discovery will be interesting. I've got recordings, text messages, financial documents, all admissible in court. Want to see your name trending next to the phrase tax fraud? Silence. The kind of silence where you can hear someone thinking about how quickly their life can burn down. Thought so, I said. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell Jake to withdraw the guardianship petition. You're going to leave me alone. And in exchange, I won't send what I know about your company to the IRS, the state attorney general, and every business journalist in New York. You're bluffing. Try me, I said. You've got more to lose than I do. I hung up, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to calm. Not joy, not satisfaction, just clarity. Because now it was official. This wasn't a family dispute. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was warfare, and I'd just fired a warning shot. But wars aren't won with single blows. They're won with pressure, patience, precision, and I had all three. The next morning, I checked Ashley's page. The livestream video, usually reposted within minutes, was gone. Her most recent story was an image of self-care tea and a quote about boundaries. When influencers start posting inspirational quotes, they're not serene, they're panicking. By noon, Victor sent me a message. She's calling around, trying to find out who leaked things. She's scared. Good. At 3:17 p.m., Jake called. Not texted. Called. Dad, what the hell are you doing? Standing up for myself, I said. You're threatening people. No, I'm promising consequences. You could ruin her life. She tried to ruin mine. You're being dramatic. No, Jake. Dramatic would be showing up in a courtroom with a folder labeled evidence. Calm is what I'm doing now. He went quiet. I could hear him breathing, could almost picture the vein in his forehead tightening, the way it always did when reality didn't match his version of events. This isn't you, he said finally. You don't know me, I replied. You just know the version you outgrew. I hung up first this time. That night I made tea, sat in Ellen's old chair, and reviewed the timeline I'd built. 2 weeks until the hearing. 2 weeks for Patricia to decide which she valued more, saving face or saving herself. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't emotional. I was done being cornered. I was done being quiet. And if they wanted a fight, they should have remembered something before they started one. A man with nothing left to lose is dangerous. But a man with evidence, he's unstoppable. The next morning, Jake appeared at my door. He didn't knock the way he used to, with those sharp, impatient taps that said he was already halfway gone in his mind. This time he knocked softly. Like a man approaching a grave, he wasn't sure he deserved to stand beside. I opened the door a few inches. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, wrinkled shirt, hair uncombed, jaw tight with a sleepless night's worth of regret. A man who used to spend 45 minutes getting ready to go to brunch now looked like someone who'd been dragged behind a car. Dad, he said, we need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Please, 5 minutes. There was a part of me, small, stubborn, stupid, that still wanted to believe he was the boy who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during car rides. But that boy had grown into a man who tried to put me in a legal cage. I let him in anyway. We stood in the kitchen, the same kitchen where I taught him how to make pancakes, where Ellen bandaged his scraped knees, where he'd once stood on a chair to stir cookie dough like he was solving an equation. Now he wouldn't even meet my eyes. Ashley's losing sponsorships, Jake said, voice strained. People are accusing her of elder abuse. Her followers are turning on her. Good, I said, and meant it. He blinked, like he'd expected sympathy. Dad, please. This is destroying our lives. You tried to steal my home, I said. You tried to have me declared incompetent. You stood by while your wife slapped me. What did you expect? He rubbed his face with both hands, a gesture I recognized from his childhood, his tell when he was cornered and his brain was scrambling for an exit. I didn't know it would go this far. Ashley's mother, she convinced us that you couldn't handle things anymore. And you believed her, I said, without talking to me, without asking if I needed help. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, Jake. He swallowed hard. What do you want? Tell me what you want, and I'll make it happen. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Not as the boy I raised, not as the professional he became, not as the stranger he'd turned into. I saw the fear in his eyes, not fear of me, but fear of losing everything he'd built on a foundation of convenience and silence. I want you to leave, I said. I want you and Ashley and Patricia and Sarah to stay out of my life. I want my home to remain mine. And I want you to understand what you've done. I do understand, he said quickly. I made a mistake. No, I said, calm but sharp. You made a choice. You chose money over family. You chose a woman you've known for 5 years over the father who raised you. And you will have to live with that. Dad, get out. Please, get out. He stood there for a moment as if waiting for me to soften, waiting for the old version of me to resurface, the one who always forgave him, always made excuses, always believed he would do better next time. But that man was gone. They'd buried him the moment they filed that petition. Jake left. I closed the door, locked it, stood there feeling my pulse hammer in my fingertips. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from fury finally given space to breathe. But I wasn't done, because hurting their image wasn't enough. Fear wasn't enough. Even leverage wasn't enough. They needed consequences, real ones. I walked to the table, sat down, and opened the file Victor had sent me. Page after page of numbers dressed up as truth, buildings that didn't exist, loans borrowed against air. Fraud so elaborate it deserved applause for its choreography. I picked up the phone and dialed David. "We move forward," I said when he answered. "No settlement, no negotiations. They want a war. We give them a public record." David exhaled slowly. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." "We can file a counterclaim," he said. "Emotional distress, elder exploitation, false statements. I can also subpoena financial records from Patricia's company as part of discovery." "Do it," I said. "Make them taste the system they tried to weaponize." "Frank," he said, voice low, "this might destroy your relationship with your children forever." After I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. Not the kind of silence that presses down like a weight, but the kind that clears space. The kind that says, this is what resolve sounds like. Some people think age makes you soft, that time dulls your instincts, that loneliness makes you willing to accept any treatment just to keep the illusion of connection. What they forget is that age also strips away illusion. It teaches you what really matters and what you can live without. I could live without their approval. I could live without their visits, their calls, their performative holidays. I could not live as someone's puppet, someone's patient, someone's inconvenience to be locked away. I poured myself a glass of water, turned on the old radio, and let the familiar static settle into the room. They thought they were dealing with a man too old to fight back. They were wrong, because I wasn't fighting to win anymore. I was fighting to end it. And endings, real endings, permanent endings, require one thing: the willingness to walk away from the ashes without looking back. 2 days later, I received notification that Jake had withdrawn the guardianship petition. Voluntarily, permanently. The email was short, almost sterile in its wording, but the meaning behind it landed like a physical blow of relief. No court hearing. No lawyers tearing apart my medical history. No judge deciding whether I was fit to live my own life. Just a quiet line of text informing me that the fight, at least that part of it, was over. David called to congratulate me. "You did it. You're free and clear." "Not yet." He hesitated on the other end, probably thinking I was being dramatic, or maybe just unable to accept the win. "Frank, what more do you want?" "Accountability." The word sat between us for a moment, heavier than either of us expected. David sighed, the kind of sigh that comes from knowing someone is right, even if you wish they weren't. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" "No, not this time." For years I'd let things slide. I'd swallowed insults, ignored red flags, pretended certain people were just difficult instead of toxic. I'd told myself it was better to keep the peace, to avoid confrontation, to be the bigger person. But somewhere between being drugged, manipulated, legally ambushed, and treated like an inconvenient piece of furniture, something in me hardened. I was done playing the quiet, reasonable victim in someone else's scheme. That afternoon, I sent everything I had on Patricia Miller development to the New York State Attorney General's office. Every forged document, every fraudulent loan, every tax dodge. I printed copies, scanned backups, highlighted dates, attached screenshots. I wrote a letter, 10 pages, single-spaced, laying out the timeline of lies, the shell companies, the financial sleight of hand, and the casual cruelty of a woman who believed everyone else's life existed to prop up her failing empire. I explained how she'd tried to exploit her son-in-law's father, how she used guilt and intimidation as business tools, how she treated ethics like optional accessories. I didn't dress it up or dramatize it. The truth was damning enough. Then I dropped it all in the mailbox and walked away. 3 days later, the state opened an investigation. It was faster than I expected. Bureaucracy usually moves like tree sap in winter, but apparently, when you present a stack of evidence tall enough to use as a step stool, people take notice. I got a courtesy call from an investigator who thanked me for my thorough documentation and assured me the matter was being taken seriously. 1 week after that, Patricia's company was raided, assets frozen, bank accounts seized, computers boxed up and carted off, phones confiscated, people in suits with clipboards and badges marching through her glass-walled office like termites through a rotted beam. The news ran a story. Local real estate developer under investigation for fraud. They showed footage of her building, the company logo blurred behind police tape, and a reporter standing outside in the cold, explaining how the once praised visionary businesswoman might be facing criminal charges. Ashley's Instagram went dark. No more staged brunch photos or inspirational quotes about grit and legacy. Sarah stopped posting on social media entirely. No more vacation selfies, no more pictures of overpriced lattes. Jake's LinkedIn quietly changed, seeking new opportunities. That one made me laugh. Just a few months earlier, he'd like to describe himself as integral to the company's strategic future. Now he was begging strangers for job leads. And then there was Patricia. She called me one last time. I knew the number. I let it ring twice before answering, just to make sure she knew I wasn't scrambling for the privilege. "You've ruined us." Her voice wasn't sharp anymore. It wasn't cold, or condescending, or lined with that syrupy politeness she used when she wanted something. It was small, cornered, desperate. "No," I said. "You ruined yourselves. I just turned on the lights." She was crying. I could hear it in the way her words kept collapsing, like she was trying to keep her composure and losing the battle one syllable at a time. "We'll lose everything. Welcome to the club." Silence. Real silence. Not a pause before another manipulation. Not a prelude to guilt-tripping. Just one long stretch of air where she realized I wasn't going to save her, comfort her, or apologize for not being her victim anymore. I hung up, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel afraid, or doubtful, or guilty. I felt something steadier, not triumph exactly, but clarity. The kind that comes when a storm finally breaks and you can see what's left standing. I didn't celebrate. I didn't pop champagne or boast online. I just sat by the window with a cup of coffee and let the quiet settle. The world outside looked the same. Cars moving along the street, a dog barking somewhere down the block, but something inside me had shifted. The weight I'd been carrying for months, maybe years, had loosened. People always talk about justice like it's a dramatic moment in a courtroom, the gavel, the verdict, the collective gasp. But sometimes justice is just paperwork and patience. Sometimes it's a file folder full of truth dropped into the right hands. Sometimes it's the simple act of refusing to stay silent. I thought about the night I first realized what Patricia was trying to do to me. The way my hands shook, the way panic made the room tilt. I remembered the disbelief, because who does that? Who tries to erase a person's autonomy just to keep a failing business afloat? I'd gone from confusion to fear to anger, and now finally to something quieter. Closure. Not forgiveness. That was never on the table. But closure, yes. The kind that doesn't require approval or apologies or mutual understanding. Just distance, truth, and the knowledge that I hadn't let it happen again. Later that evening, David texted me. "Saw the news. You okay?" I replied, "Yeah, better than okay." He sent a thumbs-up emoji, then added, "You could have just retired quietly like a normal person." Never been good at that. Fair. Drink soon. Soon. Because life goes on, even after lawsuits and raids and burned bridges, even after people show you the worst version of themselves, even after you discover what you're capable of when you're pushed too far. I don't know what will happen to Patricia. Maybe she'll plead out. Maybe she'll fight the charges and lose. Maybe she'll sell off the scraps of what's left and reinvent herself in another state under another company name. People like her rarely disappear. They just change scenery. But that's not my concern anymore. What mattered was this: she couldn't touch me again. Not legally, not financially, not emotionally. The cord had been cut, clean and final. I looked around my house, the one place they'd tried to take from me, and it felt different, not just like a structure I lived in, but like something I had reclaimed, like the walls themselves exhaled. And there, in that stillness, I understood something. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the knowledge that when conflict came, you didn't collapse. You stood up, you pushed back, you chose yourself. I finished my coffee, washed the mug, and turned off the kitchen light. Tomorrow I'd wake up, I'd make breakfast, I'd read the paper, I'd do ordinary things in an ordinary day, and no one, no manipulative in-law, no forged signature, no legal ambush, would have the right to interfere. Freedom isn't loud. It doesn't always come with fanfare. Sometimes it's just the quiet hum of your own life, finally uninterrupted. The final confrontation happened on a Thursday afternoon. I was leaving the grocery store when Jake appeared in the parking lot. Ashley was with him. So was Sarah. "We need to talk," Jake said. "I'm done talking." "Please, Dad, just hear us out." I looked at the three of them. My son, my daughter, the woman who'd slapped me. They looked broken, smaller somehow. "Make it quick." "Patricia's going to prison," Ashley said. Her voice was hoarse. 2 to 5 years for fraud. My father's divorcing her. Our apartment is being foreclosed on. We have nothing. "That's not my problem." "We know," Sarah said. "We know we messed up. We know we betrayed you. But Dad, please. We're your kids. We need help." "You needed help," I corrected. Past tense. "When you had it, you tried to take more. Now you're out of chances." "So that's it?" Jake's voice cracked. "You're just going to abandon us? Like you abandoned me? Like you stood by while I was slapped and humiliated? Like you tried to steal my home? We said we're sorry." "Sorry isn't enough. Sorry doesn't undo what you did. Sorry doesn't give me back the son I raised, the daughter I loved. And I'm not interested in knowing the strangers who replaced them." I walked past them toward my truck. Jake grabbed my arm. "Don't touch me." "Dad, please." I pulled away. "You wanted me out of your life. Congratulations. You got your wish." "We were wrong." "Yes, you were. And now you get to live with that." I got in my truck and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I watched them standing in the parking lot, getting smaller and smaller until they disappeared. 6 months later, I was sitting in my apartment when the doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. "Victor." "Hey," he said when I opened the door. "Thought I'd check in." "I'm fine." "Yeah, you look it." He gestured to the half-empty beer on my table, the TV playing old movies. "How's retirement treating you?" "Same as always." Victor sat down without being invited. That was Victor. "You hear about Jake?" "No." "He's working construction. Ashley's waiting tables. Sarah moved back home with her folks in Jersey. Good for them. Frank, they've hit rock bottom. That's what happens when you make bad choices." "True, but at some point you gotta decide. Do you want justice, or do you want your family back?" I was quiet for a long time. Then, "They made their choice, Victor. They chose money over me. I didn't do this to them. They did this to themselves." "Maybe, but you could stop it. You could reach out, help them rebuild." "Why would I do that?" "Because they're your kids." "No, they're strangers who happen to share my DNA." Victor sighed. "All right, I tried. But Frank, for what it's worth, being right doesn't always mean being happy." "I'll take being right." He left. I sat in Ellen's chair and thought about Jake learning to ride a bike, Sarah's first day of school, family dinners. Then I thought about Ashley's hand across my face, Jake's cold eyes, Sarah taking money to spy on me. I finished my beer. 1 year after the wedding, I was walking through Queens when I saw them. Jake and Ashley, loading boxes into a beat-up Honda. They looked tired, older. Ashley's hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup. Jake wore work boots and a stained jacket. They saw me at the same time I saw them. We stood there, 20 feet apart, frozen. Ashley looked away. Jake opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Dad, Jake, we're moving, heading upstate, fresh start. Good luck. Yeah. He paused. For what it's worth, I understand now. What we did. What we tried to do. I understand why you can't forgive us. Do you? Yeah. If someone did that to me, I'd never forgive them either. We stood there in silence. Ashley climbed into the car, not looking at me. Jake lingered. I hope you're happy, Dad. I mean that. I hope whatever you got out of this was worth it. I got my home, my dignity, my self-respect. And your kids. I lost them a long time ago, before any of this started. Jake nodded slowly. Maybe you're right. Maybe we were already gone. He got in the car. They drove away. I walked back to my apartment, climbed the stairs, unlocked the door. Everything was exactly as Ellen and I had left it. Safe, secure, mine. I sat in her chair and looked around the empty room, and for the first time in a year, I let myself cry. Not for what I'd lost, but for what they'd thrown away. 2 years after the wedding, I received a letter, no return address, postmarked from somewhere in Vermont. Dad, it began, Jake's handwriting. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that Ashley and I are divorced. She moved back to the city. I stayed here. I'm working as a carpenter, building furniture. It's simple work, honest work, the kind you used to do. I think about you every day, about what I did, about who I became. I don't blame you for cutting me off. I'd have done the same thing. Sarah got married. She didn't invite me. I heard about it through a mutual friend. I don't know if she invited you. I'm sober now. 346 days. I didn't realize I had a drinking problem until I lost everything. Funny how that works. I'm writing because I wanted you to know that you were right. About all of it. We were greedy. We were selfish. We destroyed the best thing we had for money we didn't need. I don't expect a response. I don't deserve one. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What family means. What I lost. I hope you're well, Dad. I hope you're happy. Love, Jake. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in the drawer with Ellen's letters, her jewelry, her wedding ring. I didn't write back. 5 years after the wedding, I was diagnosed with lung cancer, stage 3. The doctor said I had maybe a year, maybe less. I called David and updated my will. Everything went to charity. The apartment would be sold, proceeds donated to a veterans organization Ellen had supported. My pension would go to a scholarship fund. Nothing for Jake, nothing for Sarah. David asked if I was sure. I was. Victor came to visit one last time. You should call them. No. I am at peace. I made my choices. They made theirs. This is how it ends. That's cold. That's fair. He left shaking his head. I spent my last months in the apartment, surrounded by memories. I thought about Ellen a lot, about the life we'd built, about the kids we'd raised. I wondered what she would think of all this. Would she be proud, disappointed, sad? I'd never know. On a Tuesday morning, I got a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it carefully. Sarah stood there, older, thinner, worn down by life. Dad. Sarah. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She entered slowly, looking around like she was seeing the place for the first time. It hasn't changed, she said. No. I heard you were sick. I came to... I don't know. Say goodbye, I guess. Okay. We stood in awkward silence. Then she said, "I'm sorry for everything, for taking Patricia's money, for helping them, for choosing wrong." "Okay." "That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Sarah? That it's fine? That I forgive you? That we can go back to how things were? I want you to acknowledge that I'm trying." 5 years too late. Her face crumpled. "You're so cold, so unforgiving. You want warm and forgiving? You should have thought about that before you sold me out. I was young. I made a mistake. You were 30 years old. That's not young. That's old enough to know better." She wiped her eyes. "Jake said you'd be like this." "You've been talking to Jake?" "We reconnected last year. He's different now. Sober. Working hard. He asked about you. Good for him. He wants to see you before." "No." "Dad." "No, he made his choice. I made mine. This is the consequence." "So you're just going to die alone? Bitter and alone?" She stared at me. Then she nodded. "You're right. We don't deserve your forgiveness. We don't deserve anything." She walked to the door, stopped, turned back. "I loved you, Dad. I know you don't believe me, but I did. I still do." "Then you should have acted like it." She left. I died on a Thursday afternoon, alone in my apartment, sitting in Ellen's chair. The funeral was small. Victor came. David came. A few guys from the old union days. 20 people, maybe. Jake showed up. Sarah, too. They stood in the back, didn't speak to anyone, didn't approach the casket. Sarah had stood stone-faced, holding her husband's hand. After the service, Jake approached Victor. Did he say anything? About me? At the end? Victor looked at him for a long moment. Then he said you made your choice. He made his, and he had peace with that. That's it. That's it. Jake nodded slowly. I guess that's what I deserve. Yeah, Victor said. I guess it is. The apartment was sold. The money went to charity. The furniture, the photos, the memories, all of it was donated or thrown away. Nothing for Jake, nothing for Sarah. Nothing left but the ghost of what could have been. But here's the thing about revenge. It doesn't feel the way you think it will. I spent 5 years proving I was right. 5 years watching my kids suffer, watching their lives fall apart, knowing I had the power to help them and choosing not to. And in the end, what did I win? I won the apartment. For 5 years. Until cancer took me, I won my dignity, my self-respect, my sense of justice. But I lost my son, my daughter, the grandchildren I never met, the reconciliation that could have happened if I'd been willing to bend. Was it worth it? I don't know. I stood my ground. I refused to be a victim. I fought back against people who tried to exploit me, and I won. But victory tastes like ashes when you die alone. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Not that revenge is wrong, not that forgiveness is weak, but that sometimes the price of being right is higher than you realize, until it's too late to change your mind. Jake's working as a carpenter now, building things with his hands. Honest work, the kind of work I used to respect. Sarah's married, has a daughter, named her Ellen after my wife. I'll never meet her. And me? My gravestone reads, Frank Delaney, loving husband, fought for what was his. It doesn't say loving father. I guess I made sure of that.